I was a very neurotic child. Actually, I only ate round foods. Cheerios, SpaghettiOs, anything that ended with O's was a good bet. Beans, buns. I was very small. And yes, very neurotic. And one of my things that I was afraid of was monsters, definitely monsters. And I remember that at one point I walked through the room when my parents were watching a movie on television. And I don't remember much of the plot because I wasn't there long, but it didn't take long. There was something about divers and a submarine and a deep sea creature that turned the inside of divers into a colorless jelly. It was weeks before I could get into an unplugged bathtub. Or another one. When I was very small, I used to go to a giant public library. I basically was raised by feral librarians, and they had an amazing children's section. It was nonfiction and fiction, and every single week I'd go there and get a huge stack of books. And I remember this week, one of the books I had checked out was Plant People. Now, with stunning titles like that, I don't know why I bother with Shiver and Linger and all that. I'm just thinking, wolf people. Anyway, so Plant People. The deal with Plant People was that it's a small western town, much like here, and the fog rolled in and it turned everyone except for the narrator into a plant. And now normally I wouldn't be interested or moved by a book like this because, come on, right, people turning into plants, but it had black and white photographs. They chronicled the town's journey through planthood. I mean, it gives a whole new meaning to greenhouse effect, right? So it had pictures of, you know, the town, the fog, and then one stirring picture that haunted me was the narrator's mother was washing dishes, and as she was washing dishes, you saw her hands, and you saw she had veins in them, not veins pumping blood, but veins pumping chlorophyll, turning her into a plant, and she didn't even know. Yeah, so, I didn't really think that people turned into plants because it would have been in the news, right? Because I was a very phobic child, but I was logical, and if people were turning into plants, it would have made the news. However, there was that photograph, right? And when I thought back on it, I couldn't remember if I picked up Plant People from the nonfiction side or the fiction side. Now, I could have gone and asked the librarian to clarify, but I decided it would be easier for the next year to instead become paranoid every time the fog rolled in and go running inside to see if my mom still had her regular hand. She pulled through, by the way. Thanks, friend. Anyway, so yes, phobic, and then it should come as no surprise to you that when I was small and I saw Teen Wolf, you like how I brought that back around to werewolves? That's how good I am. I was deeply scarred. It wasn't so much that I thought that werewolves actually existed somewhere, but just to be on the safe side, before I reached the age of 14, I never looked at the full moon on any given night for longer than 11 seconds. I pulled through. Again, thanks. That was, I guess, my first introduction to werewolves. I was looking back trying to figure out why werewolves, and I guess I knew back then that you didn't want to be one, but werewolves, I gotta say, when I first wrote Shiver, I never thought I would write a novel about werewolves because they're just not sexy. I mean, again, the whole shedding, slobbering, flea collar. Sorry for all of you Team Jacob people out there, but I just can't deal with, 50% of the time, yes, he may be a golden, shirtless, whatever, but the rest of the time, Anyway, so part of me says, you know what, I don't really write about werewolves because when my wolves are wolves, they're wolves. When my humans, they're emo teenagers. There's nothing in between. There's no werewolves. There's no slobbering. They're shapeshifters, if anything. As a matter of fact, if I'm being snobby about it, they're not shapeshifters. They're metaphors. Metaphors, I tell you, for losing your identity in an increasingly suburban world. Unfortunately, I think they're werewolves. Anyway, so as you can see, I actually haven't done a very good job at figuring out how to answer these questions yet. So you can ask me again next year when Forever comes out. Anyway, so thank you guys for coming out here. And if you guys are willing, maybe you want to do Q&A now, if any of you guys have questions. Yes?
Did you have any part in making the font colored?
In making the text colored?
Yes.
That's what everyone wants to know when Linger came out. They didn't want to know what happened to Shiv or to Sam or to Grace. They said, is the text going to be a different color like in Shiver too? I actually have no part of that whatsoever. I just did an interview with the cover designer actually, and I was trying to get him to tell me why it was that he had this brilliant idea to make the insides blue and green, and he just goes, oh, well, you know, it's the frosting on the cake. Like, no, that's not good. They wouldn't let me get away with answers like that. So no, I'm afraid I didn't have any part in it at all. But I do know what color the cover for Forever will be in. But I'm not telling. Actually, the other day I went down to Nag's Head, down on the East Coast where I'm from, and I stood there in the surf and I used a shell to write Forever spoilers in the sand, and then I cackled like a lunatic every time a wave came in and washed them away. I'm afraid I'm still maybe a little neurotic. I'm not sure about that. Any other questions? Oh, I should tell an anecdote first about questions. Last year I went on tour to the UK, and they shuttled in a whole bunch of school children from many different schools to talk to me. And they were all wearing little jackets, so it looked like I was teaching at Hogwarts. And they were all very well behaved, and I gave my presentation that would normally have American teenagers rolling and laughing, and they're all doing this. And so I get to the end thinking, wow, tough crowd. And I go, any questions or comments? And there is nothing. There are blinking raccoon eyes from the audience. And I'm going, this is going to be the longest hour of my life. And finally, there's one little hand. I'm going, he goes, yes. I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Your accent is very cool. I didn't really have much of an answer for that. After that, they did open up a little bit, and they asked me what flight I'd come in on, if my accommodations were pleasant, if I was getting enough sleep in my hotel. It was like having a school visit with my grandmother. Anyway, so, with that, they're coming for me. Any questions or comments? Blinking raccoon eyes. Oh, yes.
If I'm remembering correctly, Shiver was told entirely from Sam's and Grace's perspectives.
Yes.
The new book, Linger, has perspectives from Cole, Isabel, and I'm not done with the book, so maybe some others. I'm curious, how did this come about? Was it a conscious decision to add new perspectives? Was the story requiring it? What was the process?
Well, yes, there were 2 points of view in Shiver, Sam and Grace, and then in Linger we add Cole and Isabel. And when I first started writing Linger, I thought, again, it would be just... Wait, has anyone not finished reading Shiver?
Oh,
No,
I was
Shiver,
waiting
yeah.
for Linger. Sorry.
Okay. So I was going to use Sam and Grace again. Amazingly, I never thought I'd write a book where the very narrator itself would be a spoiler, but there you go. Anyway, so I was going to do just Sam and Grace again, but it turned out that after a year of writing them, I was sick of them. I confess this is true. And so it was either have them break up and move to separate apartments on opposite sides of the country, or it was to bring in some fresh blood. And I really wanted to look at why someone would make the decision, the opposite decision from Sam. Sam definitely did not want to be a werewolf and lose himself every single year, but Beck had just recruited people in Shiver that had chosen that life. And so I wanted to get inside the head of someone who would make that choice, and to do that, I had to add another narrator. So in came Cole. It turned out that Cole hated Sam and he would never talk to him. So I needed to bring in someone that Cole would talk to, which is how Isabel first came in. And I was just looking at my conversations with my critique partners, and I debated for months keeping Isabel's point of view in there. And so every single time someone sends me a fan mail that says Isabel's her favorite character, thank you, because it's keeping me from going crazy.
Just to follow up, you have a really cool accent.
No, thanks. Thanks, y'all. Yes.
Were your characters based on anyone in your real life?
Were my characters based on anyone in real life? Well, I do like to tell people that I lie and steal for a living. But I mostly am a Frankenstein kind of theft. So, for instance, if I meet someone and I like the way they carry themselves or an expression they say, I will steal it and I will take it. And a lot of times I steal things from readers, I steal things from family members, you're never safe. But the thing is about characters that they have to be exaggerations. They're not. Most people are far too sane to be actual book characters. I'm happy to report that most of you are probably too sane to be book characters. You have to be really over the top in order to stand out in a book. So no, normally we take someone and then we exaggerate